Welcome to what might be the coldest open in any LP I ever do. This is the DLC of Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem. And we're starting here because this takes place before the actual beginning of the game. In fact, we're leaving up somewhat where we left off, with Seda getting married to Marth. That's not going to happen for a while, and even before then, Seda's now been attacked by clans of Talus who exist? I don't know where they came from, but I guess they're evil and now we have to fight them. Aw man, an axe user and a knight. Oh god, we're outnumbered, jeez. Except maybe, probably the person we're about to flash over to, right? Ellipsying as always. Ogma, how are you disappointed in him? You had to have had expectations of him in the first place. You could just ask for a date, Navarre. Most normal people do that rather than attempt a murder. So, oddly enough, I think this is actually a reference to that one, like, Fire Emblem anime or whatever. Because I think they fight in that one, but they didn't fight in Shadow Dragon. They didn't even talk to each other in that one. So we're attempting to establish a relationship, and it's kind of annoying on Navarre's end, because he's doing that whole, oh, you're just like me thing, and that's always the worst. Navarre, just why? What's your whole deal, Navarre? Quit doing it. That's right, it's a no-lose situation for Navarre. If you kill him, he's like, actually, it looks like you were like me all along. But we're not going to let that happen, because we are going to immediately run away. So I'm really not fond of this DLC, because the very beginning, you kind of have to do this in a very specific manner. I'm going to help this out a little bit by removing Ogma's weapon so that he doesn't attack, because Malice is going to be the first person to go after him. On this end, we kinda have to luck out. This is definitely our first target, because if we go towards that knight, we're opening ourselves up to attack, and I don't want that. So we gotta get the axe fighter out of the way. Of course, the trickiest dude here is that thief, given he has a sword, and Board and Cord are both at level 2. In addition, Board is clearly the superior one here, because he's already at rank C for axes, so he can use a hammer as per usual. Cord cannot, so even if you trade, Cord's not going to be able to use the hammer. They can't switch roles, and that super fucking sucks. Thankfully though, we at least managed to score a hit off that thief. If Cord missed, then we would be in a lot more pain, and we don't really have that many vulneraries at the moment. And speaking of vulneraries, we're gonna need one, because it doesn't take long for Navarre to reach us. Thankfully though, Ogma and Maris both have a conversation together. And I know I keep calling her Malice, but that's her original name, and honestly, I kinda prefer that. Remember that off-screen event? Let me just remind you and the viewer of it. Anyway, Malice and your father, Dice, were both from the Arcania Saga chapters. You know, that one series of Satellaview chapters that I covered in the Shadow Dragon LP. If you didn't, basically there were sort of these, chapters based off events between Marth's exile from Altia and the actual events of the original game. And in one of them, Malice and her father Dice we're both one of the recruitable characters in the 3rd chapter of that. All you need to know about Malice is she's a mercenary who never has money and is always starving, in part because, well, she does make deals rather easily, and in this situation, she's kind of following her heart and helping Ogma rather than helping these random jackasses. So, unfortunately for her, that means still no food. She is probably one of the most pitiable characters in the series. I know that's supposed to be pitiable, but that has more negative connotations, I think. So I'm gonna say pitiable instead. Take that, English. You ain't so hot. You've grown weak, and also you forgot to hold the sword in your hands. Navarre, your one character trait is that you don't harm women. This is the worst bluff. I know you won't do that thing you just said. Alright, so yeah, Navarre's kinda gonna keep stabbing us for a bit, and we're gonna have to make that vulnerary last. Thankfully, Maris can take the lead because I didn't attack her with Ogma, and also she crit that one mage, which is pretty great, so she's in good condition. Of course, now Sada's here to save the day, as is Norn, one of the characters from Shadow Dragon, or one of the new characters created for that game. She wasn't in the original, but she's here now. What is she doing in Talus? I don't fucking know. Either way though, now that Sada's here, we know how to recruit Navarre. The same way we always do. The one time we've always done it. You get what I mean. Anyway, not really fond of the fact that you only have one vulnerary to use between board and cord. Alright, so we're gonna get in one last hit, but now we can recruit Navarre. Hey, dummy, quit doing that! Stop it! I don't want to have a conscience. I'm Navarre, I'm just the worst. Yeah, whatever, we're just doing this again, fine. Alright, and there's Navarre recruited. Now he won't be trying to kill us anymore. So, we're going to have Maris join this crowd because they're really going to need help. So, as I said before, not really fond of this chapter, in part because of the specific way it starts. We've got a bit of downtime here, though, at least. However, that's not going to last forever. After a few more turns, the enemies are going to charge us, and we want as many of them dead as possible before that happens. I think we might have one more turn before that's the case. Anyway, though, the other reason I'm not fond of this DLC chapter is because, honestly, it's really not story relevant. I am a sucker for chronological order, that's why we're going to be doing a few of the DLCs before we actually get to the main game itself. They all occur before any of the events of New Mystery of the Emblem. But that being said, like, this one just feels like they kinda just made shit up for the sake of doing so. It doesn't really feel like it needs to be here, because, as I said in the start of the chapter, the whole Clans of Talus thing doesn't really make sense. They just made it up to have an excuse for a third DLC, because we've seen Talus before. It's a small island. We walked across the entire thing in Chapter 1 of the first game. It's not a big place. I don't know where these clans came from. There's like 2 villages on the entire place, especially after that one was destroyed. The other thing is, supposedly Talus was supposed to be united, like, before even Shadow Dragon happened? So why people are trying to kill the princess is beyond me. Anyway, though, we can now recruit Dice since he's charging at us alongside all of the other enemies. And Dice is pretty much the worst, isn't he? Like, they never have any money, but Dice's whole thing is that he gambles constantly. So, actually, like, they play it for laughs, but actually, Dice is the worst dad. Like, what the fuck, my dude? You don't have money, stop gambling it! God, Maris, you deserve better. Well, anyway, Dice's whole thing about gambling also plays into how the game wants you to use Dice. We'll see in a sec, he starts with the weapon the Devil Axe, which is a weapon that's very dangerous if you're not careful. Basically, it's one of the most powerful basic axes in the game. However, if you don't... Goddammit, board. If you don't have a high enough luck stats, the Devil Axe has a chance of hitting you instead. If you've heard of it and without playing Fire Emblem, chances are it's probably because of, like a Game Boy Advance video in which a character attempts to attack a wall and dies? Yeah, that's because of the Devil Axe. The walls are obstacles, so of course they can't attack you, but the Devil Axe does have a chance to kill you even when attacking an obstacle. I always hate using it, but the thing is, there are just enough enemies here that you kind of have to use it. Because let me tell ya, I would have at least taken quite a few hits if Dice hadn't been able to kill that Berserker. And not to mention the fact that if his Devil Axe had hit him instead, he'd just be dead. I would have had to restart the entire chapter because Dice hit himself. And this isn't the longest chapter, this is only turn 6, but like, it's sure as hell an exhausting chapter, and I would hate to have to do it again. Oh yeah, and of course a mage spawns from this fortress. One would have done so before, but Ogma was standing on it. Anyway, yeah, that's DLC 3. We are kinda getting close to wrapping up. Thanks to that last night, it is hard to say that this is under control, but at the same time, we're certainly in a much better position than we were a few turns ago, so while there's still a bit of risk, we're almost at the point where I can say we're safe. Thankfully, also, the computer can be kind of dumb at times. I remember when I did this for the original LP, I only won due to luck because the computer attacked somebody it really shouldn't have if it were playing well. Oh, yeah, by the way, just a quick thing to mention real quick, other than the fact that I'm doing the DLC first. Yes, this is a redo of the FE12 LP. I was just going to continue from where I left off, except when I was re-watching the old episodes, you know, to get a good feel of where I was, I realized I fucking hated the old LP, so I just decided, fuck it, gonna do the entire thing from the start, because goddamn the old LP was a mess, and hey! Board got a good level up just in time for this chapter to basically be over. Good for you, Board. Good for you. Not like character death matters too much, though. Unless you care that much about canon, which I kinda have to, since, you know, it's an LP and all. I don't want a character dying before they're actually introduced in the main game. It's not like you're even ranked, though, unlike the Arcania Saga chapters. There's no choice of difficulty, it's not ranked, you just play them, and they're pretty much all unfulfilling in some way. Oh well, at least this one's done. And of course Navarre disappears mysteriously as well. Because, you know, that's kind of his thing. Navarre, if you hadn't noticed, he's kind of a dick. That being said, I do kind of wish this game had voice acting, because, his voice in, Fire Emblem Heroes is, actually extremely good. There's a reason I have him in the group that I refer to as the Hot Idiots. Aside from that, this is probably the best part of this chapter, because we actually get a little bit of backstory on Ogma, you know, the character who, despite just being a mercenary who doesn't have that much to do with politics, is actually really important in the Arcania series, so he does have more backstory than most of the other characters. Still, though, this is a nice emotional moment that he and Seda share. I do like it. I just wish I didn't have to play the rest of the chapter to get to this, because I don't like the rest of the chapter. You do need a very specific strategy right at the start, so it feels like you don't have a lot of freedom in it. And like the whole, hey, you and I are so much alike thing is not terribly interesting between two characters who never talk to each other for pretty much the entirety of the series.